Bam! It's being recorded.
That's right.
Hi, Sue Harland. We're talking about self-awareness. We jumped in a little early, over 30 some years of getting to know that I wasn't self-aware by learning more about self-awareness. I was self-absorbed, which means that I thought about myself, thought about how I looked, thought about how other people thought I looked, how I feel. And it was my idea that I was aware because I thought about myself so much. Um, Kind of the opposite of what I really needed to do to be self-aware, and that was to way without judging for the purpose of understanding, given basically as a quick definition of self-awareness. My attitude had to shift from getting something to giving. It had to be giving myself the time and the attention to observe with innocence, with an openness where I didn't judge what came up. It's like in meditation, if you've meditated, a thought will come up and you want to get away from those daily thoughts that take you to stillness and meditation. So you look at that thought and you don't judge it long and go. Well, the same thing happens with self-awareness. When you see something, you need to have that attitude of caring and courage, no judgment. And when you watch yourself and you become able to watch yourself, which we'll talk about maybe a little bit today, maybe not, we might not get to it, and that is how to be full enough to think outside of your daily, like I said, like with me, it was about myself and how I looked and felt all the time. So when you can get full enough and be relaxed enough and calm enough and to look outside, you can actually observe yourself like a third party. And when you observe yourself as a third party, you're going to see a whole host of things. And you're going to want to judge those, but you just look at it and say, yeah, that I had some anger and that sort of drove me to where I responded without much kindness, much understanding or consideration. So I'm going to just do better next time, but I'm not going to beat myself up. So that, that's part of like what I am trying to do in a regular basis. And now it's coming to where I'm not trying so hard. It's just kind of happening because this process has become so innate. Okay, that just happened. How was that? When you can be relaxed enough and full enough with yourself, you have gotten enough rest, you have gotten enough beauty, stillness, you have had enough nutrition, you can make a space to where you can look at yourself and you're pretty relaxed. Now, if you're emotionally charged, there's something, your fear has hit you, pain from a relationship or something is emotionally just firing you up, and you're not going to be able to be as self-aware. So those are the things that kind of need to move along in order for you to be able to connect with observing yourself without judgment, just saying, wow, okay, what did I just do? Let me see this. Because you'll have people in your life who could really be honest with you. They might be afraid to be honest with you if you're not truly interested, but this is a source of phenomenal information as well. Just
yeah, I was thinking about what you were saying about the kinds of things that can get in the way of us really being self-aware. And I have been, as you know, watching TED Talks. And I watched a really good one recently that was talking about self-awareness, and that one of the things that can get in the way of being self-aware is avoidance. So we all have feelings that are unpleasant and that we just really don't want to feel. you know? And so, you know, we can try and deny them. We can, you know, just brush over it, change the subject. We can get defensive, right? And just strike back. If somebody makes us angry or embarrasses us, we might make a joke of it. We might use humor. You know, there's so many different things that can get in the way of our willingness and our ability to be self-aware. And one of them is just kind of not wanting to feel that feeling that's coming up for us at all. Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of throw that in. I know, sorry.
Can help you with that avoidance that Jenny's talking about. I'm sorry, Professor Watson is talking about. That avoidance is what we do when we don't really have the purpose of wanting to understand it. If we really want to see ourselves accurately, for the benefits have to be clear to us. We have to realize that that's kind of the only way we're going to be able to listen to a child and hear what they're saying and understand their perspective is when we can understand ourselves. So it's a prerequisite.
Mm-hmm.
Should I tell the story that I told you on the lake walk?
I was, you know what? Can I tell them a story first?
Yeah, sure.
I have a perfect story for those of you that are, you know, working to be teachers or you're teaching. It came up for me when I was watching and they were talking about embarrassment and how embarrassment is definitely something that we want to look at, but isn't it just so unpleasant, you know? And, you know, a lot of these feelings that we avoid, we've been doing it for so long. It's actually unconscious. It's not even a decision that we are consciously making to avoid that feeling. You know, we just are so used to reacting. You know, it's like a reflex for us. And so getting beyond the reflex will require that we consciously decide to heighten our awareness. You know, it's not just going to happen if you are in the habit of running and avoiding certain emotions. That could be really important to look at and could be real touchstones to growth for you. If you're going to change that way of being in the world, it requires that you intentionally think about that and make that happen. I'm going to tell my story later. You go, Sue.
You're talking strikes a chord with me because in order to really grow some skills, it is uncomfortable. You're going to see stuff. If you really do it right, you're going to see things about yourself that are so, you have to be vulnerable. And why would you do that? So I had to really in front of the horse or whatever I really looked at, all right, I really want to grow because, so that's super important. It's like, why would I want to grow? Well, advantages, what are the disadvantages? Well, the disadvantages are that you're going to feel funny. You're going to feel vulnerable, embarrassed, but you get over that when you start to realize that, whoa, and offer something to other people that I never could before because I'm slowed down. I'm not so anxious. I like myself better. I feel great most of the time and I live in the truth, how and what's needed around me to other people. And it's a better way of living for me because I have seen what can happen. You can't care about someone else until you really care about yourself. And that's been a shift for me because I've been only worried about how I looked and not what I had to offer to want to grow. So anyway, so along those lines, I'm going to tell you a story about my father was in his 80s. He's now 92, and he is one of the most dedicated self-awareness people I have ever known. And here's an example that's going to just give you a picture. So about in his 80s, my family, we would get together with him, and he's an entertainer. I mean, the man like plays the ukulele, he tells jokes, he writes music, and he sings, and he's just as a family, we go out with Dad, and we were going to restaurants, and when we go to restaurants, he would talk to the waitress, find out where they were from. If he knew the language, he'd speak a few phrases in Spanish or whatever language, you know, they knew. And we as a family were sitting there, we came to see him, and some of us came a long ways. And yet he was just trying to be charming, and he was, you know, getting excited and talking to the people next to us at the table or talking to the servers. And sisters, we were all just getting really like, kind of like, oh, Dad, we love you, but you know, you're. So I was nominated by my siblings as the person to talk to Dad. They all were afraid, and I said, I'll do it. And it's risky. It's risky to be honest with someone, but if you come from a place of really loving them and really just wanting, and you can explain to them what's going on, you have to take a chance sometimes. So I took a chance, and I said, hey, Dad, I need to talk to you about something. Family, and we don't go out very often. It's only, you know, a couple times a year, sometimes maybe 5 times a year, you know, it just depends on when my sister and brother can be in town. I said, we've noticed that, you know, it's really hard for you to focus on us, and we've come a long way, and we need to tell you that it's painful for us to not get you. We all adore you, and we want your attention and energy. We want to be part of what's happening with you and interact with you, but you tend to or this and that. And here, I'm coming after him with a critical, you know, of observation. He could very easily, and I thought, okay, this is how it's going to go. I thought, oh, he's going to say, what are you talking about? You know, I did da, or I'm just trying to do this. Or he might start explaining himself and saying why he does it and this and that. My father, in that moment, he took a breath after I said that about our, you know, our kind of our frustration about him and his actions. And he said, I am so glad you told me this. That must have been so difficult for you to come to me and bring this up to me. And he said, I'm proud of you. Thank you. And he said, you know, I get it. And I do that with the waitresses and the you know, or whatever, servers. And I didn't really think, but now that you've told me this, I'll change immediately, and I can't thank you. And he did. And that was about 9 years ago, and he hasn't done it since. And it was something he had done his entire life. He made the decision to change, self-aware. So his attitude about it made it easier for me to talk to him, you know, and I'm his child. So where you could talk to your parent. And I know a lot of people, my mother included, who was very difficult to talk to about something like this and would have gotten real defensive and upset. But you can see how that my dad had a true caring and a true curiosity and interest in himself and how he was and how others. Didn't make a big deal. He didn't, you know, he just thanked me. He called me a week later and thanked me to do it. He didn't want any credit for not doing it. He just stopped.
And, you know, it seems like he was already engaged in this work of self-awareness. And because of that, he was able to respond in that way rather than just reacting to you. You know, that would be something where it's like, you know, I'm just being friendly. You could see it being justified a million different ways, right? But instead, he was listening to you and putting himself in your place, right? That empathy that we talk about, you know, how important it is to understand what the experience is for the other person. And what he picked up on was that this was hard for you to say. It's hard for you in this situation. This is a scary thing for you to do right now, just talking about it. You know, all of these things he was aware of because he was doing that work. And so that's one good reason why you should do the work, right? Because it makes you more approachable.
Well, and let's go ahead and say another, a selfish, like I have to trick myself with selfish reasons to work on myself because it's work. And one of the selfish reasons, my father is one of the most people I have ever known. People, he doesn't have money, he doesn't have fame. He has an entourage. I mean, people are fans. His fan club is all crazy. They adore him. And they adore him because he is a lovable person. He could do anything, make any amount of money he wanted just because of who he is, because of all the work he's done. It makes you like yourself and other people like you. So there's a little tricky purpose that you gotta go after, because seeing another person's perspective requires that you get out of the way in order to see someone else. So that's the thing you're practicing when you're practicing self-awareness, because you have to not look at your ego can't be in the driver's seat. You have to say, I'm going to be brave, and I'm going to look at how, what I look like. No matter how it looks, my behavior, I have to look at it, and I can't judge it. I have to say, okay, I was trained, and I see where that came from. Understand it. Then you can move on and make a different choice.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Sue. Never mind. Anyway, yeah, I was also thinking that it's really important in the work with children, because when you're working, especially with children in early childhood, they're very concrete thinkers, and they're just constructing their understanding of the world around them, and they haven't developed empathy yet. So they'll say things not with any kind of mean intent, but that will trigger you. Sometimes they'll say it to another child, or sometimes they'll say something to you. Like there was one time in LA when I was a preschool teacher, and a child in front of parents and children, and I think they were kind of picking up, and so there were a bunch of parents and some children standing around, and one said, you're a boy. And I was like, and I have to say, I was really embarrassed, and I didn't know how to respond. I just didn't know what to say to that, And a part of me just wanted to go, that's not very nice, you. But the more you teach, the more you're able to kind of, you'll feel these feelings that get triggered, and then you'll be able to put them aside and be professional and respond rather than just reacting to the situation. And so in the end, I said, why do you think that? Right. And I'm like, you know what, this is just a teachable moment at my expense. Yes, but it's a teachable moment here, And he said, because you have short hair. And so we had a big discussion, and we even, pulled that into some curriculum about the differences between boys and girls, and that, being a girl does not exclude you from certain things, including short hair, or certain professions. And you'll hear comments like this just because that's the stage that they're in, right? They're categorizing things. They're trying to understand this goes here and this goes here. And what does it mean to be a boy? What does it mean to be a girl? I could have reacted to that situation in a lot of different ways. But part of it is just kind of working through your own stuff so that when things do come up, you're able to teach through it rather than kind of run from it. Does that make sense? So, yeah. Oh, I have some more questions, if you don't mind. So we've been talking about self-awareness. We know that we're probably the biggest barriers to our own self-awareness. You know, it's like Sue said, you know, it's not just about getting out of our own way, but in some ways revisiting the moments that we can't, you know, we can't always work through our feelings right in the moment, right? Sometimes it requires that we come back to it. And, you know, that's where the commitment is. And that's when Sue, you know, sometimes there can be some resistance to doing that. Of course, I mean, it's not comfortable. And so if we want to put this practice of becoming more and more self-aware, if we want to put that into practice, I'm wondering, Sue, do you have some specific practical things that you might suggest that can assist people in becoming more aware or working through those feelings, being more present in the moment?
Yeah, I would say there are some questions that you can ask yourself. Checking in when you're just kind of checking in on yourself. What's going on with me right now? What are the facts of my life? You know, you might have just gotten bad news that morning and you forgot that, you know, you don't have it like on your shoulder, but it's there. And you just think about, okay, well, I just went through this. I'm handling this. So you can understand yourself. And those little happening in my life right now. What are the basic facts about me? You know, how old am I? You know, what gender do I identify with? What gender am, you know, was I born with? Yourself and saying, what is my purpose in talking to this person? What is my purpose in taking this class? Just kind of asking yourself when you're engaging in a new activity or in, you know, in any assignment that you're given, even with this course. What do I want to do? What is my purpose? You know, things like that. There are more questions, or should I?
I was thinking about journaling.
Ah, yeah.
And for me, I have done that. I took a bunch of art therapy courses as well as psychology courses and almost switched my major to becoming an art and play therapist with children. I fell in love with it so much. And I still, to this day, in order to help me become more self-aware, I will sit down and there's some exercises, some art therapy exercises that I will take myself through the steps. And in the end, there's always this big aha, you know? But I would say that for me, oftentimes when something gets triggered in me, it isn't necessarily because of what's happening in that moment. Oftentimes it's actually related to something that has happened to me in the past. Something is being brought up, a past hurt. And then that whole hurt gets attached to this situation. And sometimes it's like the littlest thing. And that's when I know I've been triggered. When this little thing happens and I just roar, or I feel like I'm roaring, even if I'm not, but inside I'm roaring. You know what I mean? And when that happens, you know, I know that this is not this is not about that. This is about something else. And that is a situation that's ripe for journaling. Because if I don't take the time and I just go, yeah, guess what? Inevitably happens. It happens again. And then I'm like, oh my God, this time I am going to look into this. I'm going to look at it. I am going to journal about it. And then, nope. And then guess what happens?
Right back around.
It happens again, and it comes up in a different way, in a different place, with a different person, right? And so, that's, I guess, another reason to take the time to do this, so that, you're not reacting and you're not constantly experiencing, I don't know, getting re-traumatized each time. So
yeah, and that's where understanding comes in, and that's where all this work pays off, is if you're able to really understand and try to connect, when did I feel journal, and you're able to look back and say, okay, so I talked about this before, maybe it was last month when I journaled about this. I don't understand what's happening with me. I feel out of control when this certain situation happens. Well, what's similar about this situation that triggered it and the one that happened last month? All right, then what's similar about my response? So you can start to become a detective. You have your evidence and you can study yourself. What you're talking about is perfect. It's a great tool. And then you can follow the leads and get to, well, the bottom, aha, oh my gosh, when father would talk to other people and wouldn't listen to me, and I had actually something really important, and I peed my pants while I was standing there, and I was humiliated and everybody laughed, but I needed to go to the bathroom and I couldn't go on my own, and my dad wouldn't stop talking. And so now when somebody's talking, they're talking and they won't listen to me because, and then you can go back to, well, it was when I was a child, I peed my pants. Hey.
No, I mean, no, I'm not laughing at you, Sue. It's not your fault.
Thank you. I need to heal, man. Don't laugh. I'm laughing because, but at that point, my embarrassment, my father, a lot of parents just go, what'd you do? You peed your pants. What's wrong with you? You just have to look at, this is your own healing to do. Your parent isn't going to necessarily come back. And I've had a lot of people that made fun of, that time. And now I laugh about it. But at the time it was horrifying and it stayed. Yeah. So there are these connections. If you make it for yourself, you don't have to rely on a care of and make you feel better. You're going to make yourself feel better by understanding yourself. So that's kind of.
Yeah. And so one of the questions that I ask myself is, when is the first time I can remember feeling like this? Kind of describing the situation, describing the feeling that's coming up, and then thinking back, when was the first time that I felt something like this? Or I might ask myself, have I felt this way before? And have you felt that way before? That's a question that I ask children a lot, because children communicate a great deal through their art. And so I love to talk to children about their art, about, what it is that they've expressed, about what it is that's happening. Sometimes we'll even just talk about a color and how does that color make you feel? If that color was a feeling, right? What feeling would it be? And then, have you ever felt that way before? And they'll be like, sure enough, they'll be like, yep, this morning, my mom grabbed my cereal away and I was still hungry and she yelled at me to get in the car, or whatever it was. And it's like, wow, out it comes, So I find that, having the right question often is the most valuable thing. So much more valuable than having the right answer. that if you ask yourself the right questions, it will lead you down the appropriate path.
Is it, think about too when you're talking about that is with children, being aware that you're talking to a child. I know it sounds really simple, but I hear parents all the time debating with their child as if it's someone their own age, competing with them. And they're not really just they're not connected to the basic fact, and that is this is a child. Mental level, their emotional level is they're in a different space, and they're in their process of becoming and their development as a human being. And we need to understand what they need, what can we, and what we can provide them, and not try to compete with them or treat them as if they're a different age and their facts of their life are different.
Right. And, giving them the opportunity to express what their experience is and how they're feeling is so important. So often when we talk to children too, we ask them a question. Especially new teachers tend to do this. They'll ask the child a great open-ended question, and we've been working on open-ended questions. So those are questions where the child has to express themselves. They're not yes or no questions like how many are there or what color is it, right? So tell me what's going on here. And then, so they'll ask this great question, and the child is clearly enthusiastic and ready to talk all about it. And the teacher is thinking about what they're going to ask next. And sometimes even interrupts the child while they're still answering the question to ask them the next question. And it's so clear. Have you ever had that happen to you before, where you're talking about something and it's really important to you and you're mid-sentence, and then somebody asks you like well, how did that make you feel? It's like, oh God, booger. You're not even listening. So
although that's a darn good question and can be used at other times, just know when to use it. But that's a great question. How did that make you feel? That's a great one.
Yeah. Let's see. We are at 4:45. Okay, so
Do you want me to talk at all more about the questions that you can journal about, or are you just going to put that up on the screen?
Oh, I was actually, you had a bunch of them. Is there one specifically that you want to talk about? The other thing that I wanted to cover is just to talk a little bit more about the importance of increasing self-awareness in children.
Oh, go for it. That's more
kind
important.
of. So if there's a question you want to finish up with, Sue, that you think you want to talk about, that's.
Well, I would just say that the brave action, or the brave process of looking at what others have said about you and finding the grain of truth in the critical. Mm. That's what a person who is like I talked about, you being kind of an investigator of your own life with your journaling. It's easy for us, it's painful to hear things that you don't want to hear from other people about yourself. You suck, you were mean when you did that, or this. We want to defend ourselves. But one of the most powerful and helpful things in journaling is, what is the grain of truth in what somebody said? They were emotional, they didn't approach it very well, they came after me, in a way that was not healthy. But what in there can I learn about myself? What's the tiny bit of grain of truth? So that's the only other thing I would add to journaling. And Professor Watson has a list of questions that I provided prior to that. But I want to hear about childhood development and I want to hear about this.
Yeah, well, I want to continue this discussion. I thought that I would put a discussion board, extra credit, you know, in each course. And as part of that, what I'll do is copy Sue's questions that she prepared for journaling, and I'll copy them in there so that you can take a look at them and really take the time to consider them, because they're wonderful. And I love that. Where is the grain of truth? Where is it? You know, so often we're like, it's wrong, you're wrong. So, you know, no need to go any further with this situation because I'm right and they're wrong. So why do I even need to look at it? Right? It's like, well, maybe because it's bugging you so much. But anyway, I love that. Where's the grain of truth? That's what I should have called the talk. The grain of truth. Anyway, so many of you are parents, and I know that because I can see your children running around. Many of you are actually already working, hi there, are already working with children in various settings, or maybe you aspire to work with children in whatever way in the future. And so, you know, my focus and expertise is on 0 to 5. And for the purposes of this discussion, I'm just going to focus on those preschool years that are 3 to 5. And during this time, one of the mistakes that teachers often make is they talk to preschoolers as though they've already developed a full ability to empathize. So one child will grab a toy from another child, right? And the child's, oh, you know what, that's my toy. The other one's like, I got it, you know? And the teacher will come up and she'll go, that's not nice. How would you feel if you were playing with that toy and the other boy came up to you and you were having the greatest time, and then that boy pulled it away and da-da-da-da, and how would you feel? You know, and first of all, it's too long. So they lost you. They're just gonna say like, yes, like they just want to get it right. Like they just want to plead no, you know, they lost you. But what we're asking children to do in the heat of a moment is to put themselves in somebody else's shoes. And we know that preschool children are egocentric. And so that means that they're not egomaniacs, right? But that they have the experience that everyone is like me. If I'm experiencing joy, everyone is experiencing joy, right? And so the idea that there are separate individuals having different experiences out there, you know, really doesn't come into consciousness until late 5, 6 years old. And so for young children, they're really just starting to, they're turned very inward, right? And that's for a good reason, because I can't really understand how you feel until I understand how I feel. I can't really empathize with you if I've never had the feeling before, or I've never recognized the feeling. And that's the thing. You know, a lot of preschool teachers, when they talk with children, there are basically 3 emotions, people. Just 3, right? What is it? You know, happy, sad, and mad, right? That's all that children feel. And because of the lack of emotional vocabulary that we use with children, we rob them of the ability to be self-aware. They need help labeling their emotions. And that is a really important role that you all play. So when a situation happens, when you see emotions start to escalate, it's important before the child kind of loses it, it's important to go over and say, hey, boy, you're looking a little frustrated. What's going on, right? You're looking sort of annoyed. Or, you know, so we're using different words. If you think about just the word, just anger, right? It, at the bottom, at the most mild level, anger could be irritation, right? And it could move up to maybe frustration. And then it could become, I'm annoyed now. And then it could become, you know, now I'm angry. You know, now I'm mad. And then it can become, you know, I'm really pissed off, you know, or, and then it could be, I'm furious, you know, and you could see the red face with the steam coming out, right? And so when we give children these layers, they're able to gauge just how angry and upset am I? And at what point do I need to calm down? Do I need to walk away? Do I need to ask for help? And if I have no awareness, if mad is my only word to label this huge range of emotions, then children cannot really self-regulate themselves, right? We can't expect them to have an awareness if we haven't made them aware of this range of emotion. So that's one of the most important things that we can do with children. And there's a lot of really great books that explore this. What's that one? Alexander had a really horrible, terrible, rotten, terrible day. I forget what the name of it is. It's been so long since I taught. I bet a bunch of you guys know what the book is that I'm talking about. But that is one where, you know, a child starts off, he's a little bit irritated, and then he goes up to annoyed, you know, and then, you know, and the day just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. You know, and we can't expect children to check in with us unless they have a degree of self-awareness too. So I think that this is just a super important life skill. And if we want insight into the world of children, and we want to help them to be able to develop those skills that we're talking about, that we need to make them more aware of, have a more sophisticated vocabulary of the emotions that they experience in spades, right? They just, it's not easy being 3. It really isn't. So, okay. So I'm gonna take a look now through chat and see if we have, oh, there's a lot here, okay. While I do that, actually, is there somebody who has a question? I'll answer the extra credit questions later, but is there somebody that has a comment or a question about what we've been talking about here? And if you do, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask away. I guess we covered this perfectly. We talked about everything. Okay, here's a question. I have a question. What type of technique? Okay, I have a question. What type of technique is being used in the following statement? Terry, I can't understand you when you are whining. When you use your words to tell me what you need, then I can help you. Is it confusing? So what this is an example of is I think because I've just been looking into the practicum course is I think that's where this might be coming from. And this is, it could be ignoring because you're saying, I just can't understand your whining. And I used to do that with the 2-year-olds. Like, you know, you've got to use a different voice. It hurts my ears. I cannot understand what you're saying. And so I think they use that as ignoring, but then you say, when you use your words to tell me what you need, then so that's redirection. So in one way you're saying, you know, this tone is not appropriate, but when you do this, your need will be met. So when you use your words appropriately, your needs will be met. So then I have, did that answer your question, Gabriella? You'll need to unmute if you want to. Yes?
I didn't understand the second one where it says, when can you use your words to tell me what you need?
Can you use your words? So basically, when, let's say with toddlers, right? If they want something, they're, yeah, give me, you know, and you say, you know, use your words. Oh, can I please have some more banana? That's what you're asking them to do. Does that make sense?
Like, be more specific?
You're asking, so children, if they're whining and they're just like grabbing and they want you to read their mind, and we want them to talk in full sentences, and we want them to ask us in appropriate ways. When a child, yeah, if a child whines, I'll give you a banana, right? And you give them the banana, you've just reinforced that whining. And believe me, you don't want to listen to 30 children talking like that. So you definitely want to redirect them and teach them how to do, how to use an appropriate, how to ask appropriately and get their needs met. And then you want to make sure when they do it right, that it works. Okay. Casey, what would an appropriate way to discipline a child? That is a huge question. There are a lot of different approaches. And Casey, I think you're in the 170 class. I can't, but we are going to be talking about using positive guidance strategies with children that work if you're a teacher or a parent. I guess in all classes. We're also going to be talking about parenting and your approach to parenting, and what happens when we, you know, are, let's just say, for example, if we're too strict, you know, or if we're too lenient, right? Those are two sides of kind of the same thing, and they both can have negative effects on children. So this question, we actually teach an entire class called Positive Guidance with Young Children. And, you know, if you're really interested in learning about this, I think it's fascinating. Of course I do, I'm in the field. But I would suggest you take CD 180, Guidance of the Young Child. Otherwise, in all my classes, you will be getting a taste. Did you have any other, is that okay, Casey? I'm not sure if she's here. Okay. Are there any other questions? You guys can unmute. You could say something if you have a comment, anything? No?
Yeah, I had a question. I joined just a little bit before Harlan was talking about her dad, and that's tough, like, you know, confronting your dad. And I don't know, it's maybe in my opinion, but if your dad's a little more like kind of macho man, but it's like, as a guy, it's hard to confront your dad like that. That's like, I just wanted to say props to that. But at the same time, I've been working as a special education technician for like 3 years, and I recently just got hired as a behavioral interventionist. So it's definitely super different on the field. So like my question I mean, what's your take on, kids that are on the spectrum, that are, toddlers, or even from to 10 years old, I guess. Like, how would you go about, like, what's the difference, or do you have the same take on it?
Raul, you're in my you're in principles of child development, right?
Yeah, 170.
Yeah, that's right. So right now you're learning about the developmental milestones that occur at different ages, right? And what
Yeah.
early childhood educators do is we observe children and we see where they are in terms of their abilities. What can they do? What have they mastered? And then we know what the next milestone is, and we create activities to enable them to practice those skills or to learn that knowledge. Does that make sense? So it's a developmental approach rather than an age approach. And so with
Okay.
children that have special needs, a lot of times the problem is that the expectation is that they be at the level of their age instead of the level of their developmental stage where they really are. So if our expectation is that they grow from where they are, they're going to achieve more success and have a better experience of learning and growing and practicing and trying new things and taking risks. But if we always have the bar way higher than they can reach, then they experience themselves as failures and they stop taking risks. I mean, what's the point, right? Well, why should I take a risk? It never works out. You know, I'm always in trouble, or they're always telling me I did it wrong, right? And you can just see children turning off.
Yeah.
So I would say that this class is super important to what you're doing, and that with special needs, we really need to take a developmental approach, depending on whatever that special need is.
Okay.
I know it's a
Thank
short
you.
question, but if you come in during
Yeah.
office hours, I'll give you a much longer answer.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
We can do it. We'll do it. We'll do a chat roll.
Okay. Sounds good.
Oh, that would
Thank
be
you.
fun. Actually,
Thanks for
I
the
have
thought.
an idea. Yeah, I think we are going to do this.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank you all so much for coming. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you embrace developing yourself and challenging yourself to try some of these things and maybe even make them part of your, part of your habits, your life habits, where you take time and you reflect, and not just on the stuff that is uncomfortable, but also on the stuff that brings you joy and happiness and fulfillment. Because the more conscious you are of that, the more likely you are to be able to continue to create that in your lives as well. Right? So it's both of them are really important. I feel like we need another hour. So Sue?
I have one, when you're, okay, in closure, if you actually want to pee your pants, this drive-through Scream Zone
Yes.
at the Del Mar Scare Grounds. My Greg DeFada is the creator of the Haunted Trail of Balboa Park, and we also had the Haunted Hotel in downtown San Diego, which is now, next year, will be back as the Disturbance in Mission Valley by the Haunted Hotel. So the Disturbance created by the Haunted Hotel. And this year we're partnering with Scream Zone, and we have a attraction. And so if you really do want to pee your pants and not my story, come on out and tell your friends.
Put some plastic on your car seats. and, and come on. Can you believe it? So this is what Sue and Greg do all year. They sit around and think about how to make you
Pee your pants.
So she's devoted her whole life to this, and that just tells you how much damage was done early on.
We're putting children in therapy every October.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys go. I think some of you even might have questions about class, and I'm gonna stick around and answer whatever questions you have. And I just want to say thank you so much to Sue Harlan.
Thank you. This was really a treat. Thank you for letting me in.
No, that was amazing. I'm not worthy. You're awesome.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and with you.